Welcome, everybody. I'm really excited for Expert Monday. This is a series I got to revive thanks to a lot of inspiration through the new upcoming book by my friend Phyllis, who is live with us today. Hello, Phyllis.
It is so good to see you and be with you, Tina.
Thank you so much. I met Phyllis, who was my mentor and coach during my participation in the NASDAQ Milestone Makers training. And she has been such a great inspiration and just also a leader to me building my company that we have been in touch ever since. Phyllis published her, I believe, first book, because you actually have two, but your first book a few years back, Courageous Clarity, um, and now is about to publish a new one. She has spent over 3 decades inside the world of corporate leadership, not only in HR, not only in corporate context, but also in government affairs, and also for several years now as an independent coach to other executives in a number of companies. Phyllis, you used to coach leaders in your organization even before you left. You used to be the head of HR at Kudu Corporation and to be like an internal coach. We've had quite some conversations about the difference between coaching and mentoring while discussing Mentessa. But would you share with us, just to make this presentation of you more vivid for the people who haven't yet had the pleasure to know you, what led you to coaching and how did you come to become an executive coach?
Well, thank you for that question, Tina. And it's kind of a funny story. I'll try to keep it brief in terms of how I got into coaching, because when I left the corporate world and was thinking about, do I want to focus on consulting? Do I want to go back into, I had loved being part of a growth story with a small organization and helping build it into something large and successful. And so it's kind of weighing those different options. And I began taking on some consulting engagements just while I thought about what was going to be next. And I was enjoying the variety of work and the interesting projects so much, I decided, well, I'll focus on this for a while. And very quickly, I started having clients asking me to coach executives in their organization, which caused me to say, okay, I did this a lot when I was at Quidel. However, I probably should get certified. If I want to be serious about this, there are plenty of people offering their services as coaches, and yet how many really good coaches are out there? So I wanted to have the credentials and the education around that. Went to Berkeley Executive Coaching Institute, completed that certification, and began doing more and more coaching, and very quickly just found a passion for it, because when you can help one leader be even better with their team, you impact so many lives. Because all of us have experienced, if you've worked for a good leader, the difference between that and someone who maybe thinks they're a good leader or wants to be, but lacks just some basic understanding and self-awareness.
Absolutely. And this is why, and I love for you saying those two things. So the one is that the impact a coach can have on leaders. I think there is analogy there between the impact a leader can have on people in a company or on the team performance, but also about your own journey, that when you decided to be serious about it, you decided to get educated and to be intentional about this and to really strive to have an impact. It's a key word in your work so far. And I believe this is something that can be said about leaders as well. How many good leaders, even if some companies are heavily loaded with different leadership roles, leadership is just not easy, and it requires skill, but also it requires intention, as we will see in this conversation, or as you claim with both of your books. What I love about your work is that you have built your entire practice, if I can say, because you have quite of different original methods that you have also shared with me. But you've built the entire practice between how leaders think about how they come across
Mhm.
and how they're actually landing with the people around them. Is it correct to say that this is like a USP of yours? This is what makes your the center of your coaching, and that makes your book stand out?
I think it's very correct to say that the idea that most of us think we're fairly self-aware. And I believe it's Tasha Eurich who talks about something like, 95% of us believe that we're very self-aware, and yet only maybe 10 or 15% of us really are. And so even those of us who believe we are aware of the impact we have on others, it takes ongoing development and work. It's not like if you wanted to build your muscles, you go work out, you build your muscles, and then you're there and you've arrived and you never have to do that again. But it's ongoing maintenance and awareness. And this requires, especially for successful leaders, courage, because everyone looks at you once you reach a certain level of success and just assumes you've arrived.
Hmm.
And it takes humility to say, maybe I don't know all the answers. Maybe what I actually know is getting in the way of me learning more. And
Yes.
that discipline then to keep it up.
And those are principles that are pretty much contradictory to how we used to see leaders in organizations, the ones that had to have all the knowledge and the wisdom and always be confident and always have an answer. And saying or admitting that sometimes you don't, or sometimes you yourself need some help, or sometimes you just want to learn from others, are quite new developments in leadership. I hope that the power of all of the technology we have at our fingertips right now to really research answers and not have to really dig into the details for the knowledge so much uh, gives really free space for more conversations like this in the workplace, where people get to ask questions and be curious about each other. So now, after the success of your first book, Courageous Clarity, which I have here with a personal note from my time in San Diego, I think it is right in the first side. Oh, here it is. Um, Now you're about to publish Harvest, a leadership story. And I remember you telling me about this even before it was a book. It is the journey of a close to burnout leader, manager in an organization who is forced to take some vacation to reconsider her leadership and where and who she wants to be in the workplace and life, and lands in an olive wood.
Olive Grove, yes.
Yes, collecting olives. And I remember how you were telling me about your journeys into the olive groves together with your husband. Can you share a little bit about how this story came to ripe for being a book, and how this began for you? Harvest.
Absolutely. It's that question, what does olive picking have to do with leadership? Because most people you get kind of the puppy head tilt. What? And my husband and I, for more than a dozen years ago, we started helping friends who have an estate in southern Tuscany with their olive harvest. And we haven't been every year since then. When we were both in corporate life, my husband's now retired, but when we were working, it wasn't easy to get away every year. But we try to go now every year. And as we've gone and as we've picked, we've gotten to know the other pickers. It's kind of like if you think about when you're on an airplane, sometimes sitting next to a stranger, you can have the most interesting conversations you wouldn't necessarily have with someone you know well. And
Mhm.
it's more of that openness. And so you're out there working together and you're getting to know each other and you're sharing ideas. And as we did this and talked about what we did and what they did professionally, I started to observe just out loud that, well, I work with leaders, and well, some of the concepts we talk about, here's something that in the olive grove is a similar behavior that would be helpful to a leader. And
Yeah.
as I did more of that, the story started coming to mind that rather than just some principles, which is where it started, here are some principles I can use with leaders I work with, but it really became more of a story.
And
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 yes.
I love this about the book because I think stories are really powerful, a powerful way to learn, especially to inspire change. When I'm thinking about powerful stories, you cannot not mention the Bible is a powerful story, but there are also stories like this from the workplace. And I remember this is quite of a notebook, but when I was reading Harvest, because you sent me a digital copy, I was thinking a little bit about Who Moved My Cheese. Do you happen to know this
Oh,
book?
yes, yes.
I think it's from the 70s. It's a really old story about a person getting aggravated for not finding where the cheese is, but not finding out who has moved it. And I think Harvest has the same quality and even more depth for becoming a modern workplace fairy tale, for maybe inspiring people to be more curious and more open to their colleagues, but also to themselves. So you had this experience and you were making some parallels and you were working on the story, and this is how Emily was born. When you I started the book, I got into this very hectic everyday of Emily, the manager, and I noted down a few sentences that she was saying, like, they should have done this earlier. I couldn't wait for everyone, and there is so much to do. And I was just identifying moments in our everyday at Mentessa, but also from my previous workplace experience in all of those sentences. Can you say a little bit about how you built this character and what were you maybe trying to avoid when constructing Emily to emphasize your message?
Oh, wow. I I think so many of us have this experience, especially nowadays when we're being asked to do more with less, being driven very hard, and even with this idea that AI will replace people, people who are using AI a lot are probably finding they're working more hours. And
Mhm.
so just this crush it culture in the many work environments is an opportunity to identify that we are juggling a lot, and particularly as leaders, but really all, I would say all folks who are in the workplace, there's a lot being juggled. And so thinking about, okay, how do I manage this better? How do I become more aware, more intentional of what I'm doing? In Emily's case, she was so driven, she had so bought into this idea that she would get results no matter what, that she became toxic to her team.
Hmm.
And that
And
wasn't
who
her
hasn't
intention.
been there as a manager, but also as a team member?
Yeah.
And I would like to talk about this hot seat as a leader because I have been there certainly for the first few years when I really wanted A, but through my leadership, I definitely did not achieve A, maybe B, maybe some other letter, totally random sometimes. And it really took a lot of years and practice and a lot of also failure with people until I learned to combine both. And this is what your book and your message focuses around, correct? How to make no distance left between intention and impact.
Yes, which should always be a goal. I do believe there, you know, we aren't mind readers. So there will always be some bit of distance between what I intend and what you experience.
Mhm.
And yet, the more I communicate, the more open I am, the more I can bring humanity to the interaction rather than strictly business. You can be professional and still be human in the workplace.
Absolutely. At least today you can. And this is why stories are such a great way to convey it. Cheers to Gretel, who is in the audience, who writes, "This is so true. Powerful stories make it so much easier to get the point and remember it in important situations." Do you have any such stories that have inspired your becoming a leader?
Well, probably one that most of most people will recognize is Lencioni's Five Dysfunctions of a Team,
Mm,
one of the classic leadership fables, though I do have to say Who Moved My Cheese? I love that one, especially when you're talking about change. But when I think about Lencioni's work with teams, it was that story kind of set the bar for a business fable that describes what is possible
mhm.
and what some of the potential roadblocks are.
Yes, absolutely. And this is how the journey of Emily towards her first transformation starts, with identifying the problem. So she literally sits down on the airplane and makes a list of everything that doesn't go well.
Yes.
And then she lands in Italy. Why? So you and your husband visited Italy quite often, but is this like based on the real places and the real story, or did you intentionally decided that it has to be Italy and not Greece or whatever because of, people love Italy?
Well, I decided to use Italy because we know it well. And as I was writing, I was envisioning the place where our friends live, and which is an actual place where you can go on holiday.
Mhm,
And it was easier for me to tell the story with that image in my head.
mhm,
And because we've had that experience with many different people over the years, some who come back and pick every year, so we've gotten to know them well, and others who are new and then we never see them again. But that really drove the location. Plus, as you say, everyone loves Italy.
and also it is a place where that we love it because we connect it with vacation, with a different tempo, with just not the velocity and nerve-wrackingness in companies throughout transformation or innovating or high performance cultures. um, Having Emily make a list of the problems, do you think those were all of her problems? Do you? So, because I will tell you why I'm asking, because I am speaking a lot about motivating teams, and very often leaders say yes, but there are just some people that don't want to come along. Some people are just disengaged, and there are those really clear studies by Gallup, for example, that measure disengagement in the workplace going up from year to year, especially since the pandemic. And there is just this moment in the work experience of every people manager where you are mm, where you're facing the truth that what you want and what's in your head just will not be the same for other people, neither in the importance nor in the quality or mechanics of how it is performed. So, when she was writing down her problems, do you think she was disregarding or not knowing about other problems that she had to work on?
Yes. So that's the short answer. Um, as she started to write down things, so that was the beginning of this discovery, because even the most brilliant leader isn't going to know everything. And especially as you rise in organizations, less information comes to you. It's just by virtue of the job, by virtue of everything that's on your plate and that's on others' plates as well. And so having her do that was a start of beginning to think about, how did I get myself into the place where I am? And
Mhm.
where do I want to go next? So it really
Mhm.
did require some introspection.
And then she went to the Grove, and she really not exactly failed first, but she really didn't have a great time in the beginning, right?
Yes, she took the way that she worked, which was, I'm going to go in, I'm going to improve things, I'm going to work faster, I'm very competitive. And she took that attitude with her to the work that she started, and it didn't go well. And the others just, they were a little amused by it, and they gave her a hard time.
Yeah.
So that also helped her to begin. At first, she felt sorry for herself, but then she started to realize that it was true. actually that's also how she was behaving back in the office.
And I think those others are really necessary, not only to bring the story to life in your book, but also because leadership is essentially a team sport. So you cannot be a leader on your own. You always need the others. And this is why you cannot just practice and be good at it, because leadership is always in interaction with other people, and people are different and we also change. So the other people really play a role. And you have quite a few different characters. Would you like to give an overview of how how you're thinking about them? I would be curious to know from the author.
Sure. So Paul and Gail are the hosts, and Paul is someone that Emily had worked with earlier in her career and who had been a mentor to her for
Mhm.
years. And so when she was at this low point where her boss had said, I want you to take a break. You have to figure out how to lead differently if you want to stay here. So basically change your leadership or else.
Mhm.
And she's feeling sorry for herself. She reaches out to Paul. And Paul's first reaction is, well, you're always too busy to come visit us. Come visit us. Come visit Italy. It'd be a great vacation for you. And we're about to start the harvest and you can participate. So that's the device to get her there. Paul is this wise leader who she only learns once she gets there in conversation that he has actually, early in his career, he also struggled with some similar types of things. So
Mhm.
he speaks from experience in what he shares. There are also 4 key people on the olive picking team, if you will, the other pickers. Tommaso and Matteo, who are native Italians, and then Deb and Charlie, who have come in also to help. And all of them have been picking for a few years together. And one of my early readers commented to me that it seemed like they were all experienced coaches. And I said, well, that's a device maybe I used and leaned into in the story. But the reality is everyone potentially can be a coach to you if you open yourself up to hearing their story and then thinking about how it might apply to yourself.
Absolutely. And I love this message. It also resonates a lot with our mission on Mentessa, where we are working on empowering organizations to be more collaborative, more cross silos, more sharing and rotating roles and skills. So I definitely love this message. And I also believe that in the way the workplace is changing, it's something that we need more of every day. I just had an idea to create a poll with a little bit of a provocative question before we get into talking about Paul more,
Okay.
because Paul was the coach we discussed before we started the conversation. I asked you, is somebody from them like the coach? Is it Paul? And you said, yeah, we can say Paul is definitely the coach. Why did you decide to not only put the others, like in an analogy of the workplace, they're always your peers, like third parties that are not really, influenced by you, your leadership, your performance, but there also is your immediate team. And then you decided to make Paul the coach. What is the benefit of having another third person helping you transform your leadership?
Yes, having someone who maybe you feel is in your corner, so they have your back, they're supporting you, and yet they're also really pushing you and
Mhm.
challenging you, because often we get very comfortable with the success we've had. And so I would say that the vast majority of leaders I work with have been successful. And then they get to a point where they want to continue to grow and be successful, and they're just running into issues. The things that have worked for them in the past are no longer working, or they're leaning too heavily into their strengths to the point where those strengths are becoming liabilities. And having someone who will hold up the mirror to you and say, is this who you want to be? Kind of how's that working for you? When
Mm.
you say, here's what I do, and really pushing you hard to think a little differently can be so helpful to get unstuck and to make those leaps that need to happen to continue to grow and evolve.
Absolutely. And I remember in our individual coaching sessions when you were holding the mirror in front of me, and innerly, I was so angry because you didn't understand until a light bulb came out. And I was like, oh, so other people don't understand because they see differently and they're not in my shoes, as they say. So this was very helpful. So Emily manages to make a turnaround. What would you say are the leadership principles that you want to convey with the book for people who are in the same position, who are in leadership roles with their hearts and want to make an impact, but somehow are frustrated by not being able to reduce this distance between intention and impact? So, what are the different leadership principles that you want to share? The most important, let's say, three that are really, really core to your book and your work.
Well, that's tough, but
But
so
here we are for a challenge. And while
yes.
you're doing this, I will blend in the pre-order now QR code for everyone who is interested. We will
So
also share the link in the comments underneath the live stream afterwards.
now, when you ask a question like that, when I think about this story overall, and really it's about how do we close that gap between how we see ourselves and the impact we have on others. There are, I say, three practices we can use at work, and then a fourth that we should just use in our everyday life. So one is to turn on curiosity. The more curious we can be, often the things that we know, our knowledge can get in the way of being open to new information.
This is
So
why more senior leaders are less open or seem to be less curious.
yes, and often it's the fourth point, which I'll just jump ahead to and mention is where you put in your time. And when you're absolutely pressed for time and you're racing as fast as you possibly can, you can overlook things. In that rush, maybe you discard information because in the moment it doesn't seem important.
Mm-hmm.
And yet being more intentional about personally pausing, taking breaks, whether that's just a 10-minute break or a walk around, the house or the office, or actually taking a few days and unplugging and truly disconnecting and allowing your brain to transition from work to play and then back to work. The more we can do that can also open us up to greater innovation and creativity.
Mm-hmm.
But so we've got curiosity, we've got the need to build trust, bringing the changes you are making in yourself, that your things you're working on yourself, you can change in many ways, and the people around you may not see it, may not be aware of it if you're not able to make it more visible.
Mm-hmm.
Because their experience of you, and this is true for all of us, it's just human nature, we have people, this is my experience with that person, and unless there is a dramatic change, and then I see that it wasn't a one-time thing, it wasn't a performance of change, it was an actual change, I'm just going to continue to see them the way I have in the past. So rebuilding trust and finding that alignment between your intention and your actions and words is important.
So the first principle would be curiosity, stay curious. And the second one is to communicate, to put effort into communicating your transformation.
Yes, I think that's a good way to summarize it, Tina, because it's really around awareness of what is the level of trust, and don't assume just because your intentions are good that everyone trusts them.
I can relate to the second piece of advice because building a startup is a very fast journey, and a journey on which you get to learn a lot of things in a very, very short time period. So one naturally develops during the way, and it's really funny when I haven't met people for 6 months or a year, and in their head it's like Tina just starting a company, but Tina has already a lot of employees or has rate of investment. And it's not that Tina is different, but just the tasks and the skills that I bring maybe have evolved, and maybe some I have realized that are not my strength and just left behind. But I can totally relate to that. And what would be the third principle that you would like every leader to take from your book?
The third is listening, because often, even if you're good at asking questions, often we ask questions really more from the intent we either want to prove that we're right or find out if we're missing something.
Mm-hmm.
We don't necessarily listen to understand. And some people think that good listening is just being silent and letting the other person talk. It involves asking, it's kind of paired with the curiosity piece, asking questions to help them clarify their thinking so that you can have better understanding of where they're coming from. And to your earlier point about people being disengaged, about leaders wanting to motivate, finding out what really motivates people. Don't try to convince them of what you think is exciting should motivate them, but really learn why do they get up out of bed in the morning? What excites them about coming to work? What would excite them if they don't have anything currently?
Mm. And also be aware that even if you have used to know about those things, people also might change and have other challenges and interests in their lives now. Work is fluid. Oh,
Yes.
I love those. And they're um, so clear when you have had the luck to have a great leader on your team, or just even a great coach. They say coaching is easy, you just have to listen well and ask good questions. But essentially, it's the hardest skill, right? Because it's
Yes.
then about the others and not about yourself.
Yes.
When is the book coming out?
So, Harvest, a leadership story. I actually have a preprint copy here.
Yes,
Can I
please
show it?
show us.
Okay.
Yes.
So, this is the cover.
Oh,
It
that's
will be
wonderful.
out on September 8th.
Mm-hmm.
It is available for pre-order now. I am super excited, actually, just to hold it in my hand after all the work that went into it, and I can't wait to see what people learn from it, how they react to it. I'm really eager for it to be out there.
Me too. You have a lot of accolades and recommendations in the book already from great leaders, and um, I wish you all the best. In your book ends with so you have this three pieces structure: the displacement, where Emily takes herself out from her job; the growth, where she goes and actually does the work with Paul, her coach, and learning about herself and leadership. And then the book finishes with the first press, where she is harvesting the results. And I wish you a very successful first press, even though it's not your first one, but your third one. I still believe it's the most exciting and rewarding thing to share your knowledge with others. And I'm really grateful that you're doing this for us. Thank you, Phyllis.
Well, thank you for this opportunity, Tina. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.